Mocha here. I don't know if you can tell, but I am sick, so bear with me please. Today I'm filming this highly requested video, which is my Japanese self-study routine. I remember my socials, they used to be about like being a polyglot or multilingual or just like about language learning content a lot more intensely than they are now. But I want to bring it back because I've been getting more into it as well, and I just want to share all my favorite routines and hacks, methods, rituals, whatever you want to call it. They're fun and they're a little bit new. They're maybe not the typical like get a book and a pen and have an insane amount of self-discipline type of video. But my condition is not the best right now, so before we start and before any of you start to study right now, let's go make some miso soup, okay? Let's go. I already feel much better. I feel like I sound better too. So before we jump into this video, I wanted to give you a little bit of like a backstory of my history with the Japanese language, I guess, just so you can kind of understand my current level of Japanese. So I would say I first sort of like discovered an interest for learning the language in the first place, like apart from being interested in Japan in general. I wanted to really learn the language when I was like 12, but I never got further other than like online lessons from, what's it called, like Learn Japanese 101 or something. So I would say I just knew about approximately like 30 words or something, going from like how are you to what is your name and stuff like that, and it was like really terrible broken Japanese too. So but I guess I first discovered a liking towards it at that point. And then when I was like 16 or something, at that point I had actually made a lot of like international friends, including a bunch from Japan because they were exchange students or like university students here. And at that point I actually had like a reason to want to speak Japanese again, and I guess at that point they sort of started speaking to me in Japanese a little bit, but of course I didn't understand anything, so it was more like, I don't know, here and there they would talk to each other in Japanese too, so it was just like I had it in my ear a lot more often, and that's sort of how I got to like, I guess, notice certain grammatical structures, but that was really it. So it was still like below an N5. It was like, it was terrible Japanese, but I guess I sort of got a feeling for the language a little bit more. And then I really took it seriously when I was like 18 years old, which is also like around the same time that I started actually like being interested in actually going to Japan. And then at 19, obviously I went to Japan, so I was studying the language there for 6 months. So that's sort of where I got most of my skills from. Ooh, it just went really bright. But ever since, and also before that, so like age 18, I was doing a lot of self-studying, and I think personally that's how I sort of got my Japanese to sound more natural, and that's also how I got rid of like a majority of my accent that I had. I'm gonna show you all my little methods and like rituals and everything that personally helps me to sort of reach a more like natural level of Japanese. And the first method or sort of like tool that I'm going to introduce to you are all of the workbooks that I like to use. Now, books are obviously a more traditional medium, but I do think they're like the basic anyone should have. Everyone should just have like a good workbook that really works for them, that they love, that's fun to use, you know, easy to understand for each specific person. And to me, these books are from PONS or PONS, I don't know. Now, I used to use PONS books back when I was in high school and I was learning like English and French with them, and they are so great. I highly recommend them. Korean, Chinese, they have everything. Now, I have so much stuff from them, like actually so much stuff from them. Just these alone are all from PONS, as you can see. Now, they have like a lot of different sort of like editions. They have one that's, for example, called a Japanese easygoing, basically. They have Love in Japan, which is kind of like comic focused, and they have writing exercises. They have so much stuff. You can really create this really unique study routine that is just like completely focused on the needs or like the focus that you're trying to have when it comes to learning a specific language. And now for me, for example, I never wanted to focus on writing, so I actually have not really used this book, for example, just because my writing is actually okay. What I personally like, I cannot deal with books that explain the grammar in the language I'm trying to learn because it's just too hard for me. Like, I cannot learn Japanese grammar by having a book explained to me in Japanese. Like I will just not understand. Like I'm someone, I just need to have it ingrained in my brain and understood in my brain one time in my native language, and then I can go on to like practicing in the language I'm trying to learn. Explain sentence structure, particles, everything all in your native language at first, and then you can go on to study or practice it in Japanese, obviously. I also really like that they have the solutions to all of the exercises, because obviously we're talking about self-studying here, so it might be hard to just like study and not actually be able to check if what you're doing is correct at all. My current favorite book from PONS has got to be this one. It's called Japanisch im Handumdrehen. Der Alltagswortschatz in Bildern und Sätzen, einfach Japanisch mitreden. Now I know this is a complicated title, but basically this is just one huge picture book. Like it's a huge picture book with the most random everyday vocabulary that you are probably not going to think of yourself. Where they teach you what's like an onigiri, they teach you what's tempura, sashimi, sukiyaki, ramen. They teach you all of that stuff. I think it's just so fun, and they have like the pictures, so it just makes it so much more fun to study. So I think this is my favorite for a reason. I'm also a huge believer of vocab beats grammar, in my opinion. I personally have very few grammatical skills in Japanese. I would say for a long time I had no grammatical skills, but I was always someone, I knew quite a lot of vocab, so even without understanding the grammar to like 100%, I was able to really comprehend the meaning of a sentence, and I was able to sort of like express my own opinion, even if it's not in perfect fluent Japanese, just because I'm able to express myself with enough vocab that I was just like, it was easy for me to survive. And I personally just think it's much easier to study than grammar too, so it's just kind of like we all need like a motivational boost, and I feel like something that's easier to remember might be good for like a focus in the beginning. Of course that's individual to everyone, but I highly encourage it, to be honest. And under that same category falls another thing that is quite a more, I guess, of a no-brainer medium, which is flashcards. These are also from PONS. By the way, this is not sponsored from PONS. It's not. This is a vocab box with pictures. Now they have all these coded by color, which I think is so cool. They have like grocery shopping, work environments, media, holiday, animals, weather, stuff like that. They just have like the absolute basics. It's really enjoyable to use it when you know that like the material you have is really good. And I do have a lot of other workbooks, but I always go back to PONS. I just personally trust it the most. It's the most fun for me, and it's the one like medium that I'm the most used to at the moment. I'm a big PONS fan, defender. Moving on to the next one. I'm someone, I spend too much time, a majority of my time, scrolling through social media. Doing online shopping, watching movies, watching YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is. I consume a lot of media. And something that has really pushed my Japanese to the next level is simply consuming the same amount of media but changing the language. Now I used to do this years ago with French and also English. My first language obviously is not English. My first language is German, and I truly wholeheartedly believe that the only reason that my English has gotten to a point where I'm confused with being a native speaker is because of the amount of media I consumed in English and from English-speaking countries, from English-speaking people. And this is just a great way of incorporating, I guess, language learning without having it be a task or a chore. So something that you sort of avoid, something that you maybe not technically are looking forward to every day, and something that you can easily do while working a 9-to-5, because let's be honest, those of us who are working 9-to-5, not everyone has the time and also the motivation to just sit down after work or after school and just study again. So I find that incorporating the language into your everyday routine is truly the best thing you could do for your language learning journey. And now the first media, I guess, that I switched to Japanese when I first started was YouTube. I'm a huge YouTube girl. I love YouTube. I've always loved YouTube. I love watching vlogs, hauls, what I eat in a day, what I study, uni vlogs, high school vlogs, whatever it is. I just love consuming a lot of like long content videos. Like I will eat that shit up. And since I switched the language of the content to Japanese, not only did my Japanese language skill has become more natural sounding and more native sounding, but I also gained so much more knowledge over trends that are happening in Japan right now. So Japanese fashion or cosmetic, but even cooking recipes. I was just able to learn so much more than I ever thought I could. Like just from chilling on your phone, doing nothing, you can actually learn so much about a country and a language. All that by just like listening. It's also great because all of that stuff is just completely for free, and you don't need to buy any apps, or you don't need to go out of your way and order something from Amazon. Everyone has YouTube, everyone can watch YouTubers. It's just something anyone can do from home. And of course, at the beginning, you're not gonna understand anything for like a hot second. For a while, you're just not gonna understand what the YouTuber is talking about, but it's not really about necessarily just like understanding every single bit of the media, but it's more about hearing a native person speak, hearing a native person present certain topics to you, hear the tonation, the speed of voice, and the sound. I personally think your skill will just improve so drastically by just carefully listening to what they're saying. And it's just so fun because as I said, I would consume it anyway, and it's just really fun to just sort of like do it in a way where it's like studying, but it's also like free time / relaxing. So I like to do that quite frequently, and you'll notice that over time you're going to understand more and more what they're saying, and I just think it's a great way of improving sort of like your everyday conversation level. I'm going to be linking some of my favorite YouTubers down in the description. I just enjoy watching them so much. I think a lot of my Japanese YouTuber focus is definitely on the fashion industry. I just know that you guys know how amazing Japanese people dress, and I personally just enjoy watching and having them explain their thought behind like a fit. It's so intriguing, it's so interesting. I enjoy every second of it, and the fact that I'm not only learning more about like Japanese fashion, which is a field that is of huge interest of mine, but simultaneously learning the language and simultaneously learning more niche specific vocabulary, like fashion related vocabulary. It's just so cool to me. Like, you cannot name like a better combination of things. Moving on to the next thing that I switched to Japanese, which is the music that I listen to. Now, a lot of people have asked me on my TikTok for like J-pop recommendation and all that sort of stuff, so I feel like that's already a little bit known that I listen to a lot of Japanese music. I also just have like this really strong inner urge to always listen to music. Like, I spent like 90% of my day just listening to music. I'm not even like a huge fan of singing or playing any instruments. Like, I'm not really like a musical person or anything, but like when I'm riding like a car, or when I'm like on the bus or the tram or the train or plane, it doesn't matter where, I like physically cannot resist the urge to listen to music. Like, I have to listen to music. It disturbs me and it irritates me if I cannot listen to music when I'm like in the car. But I absolutely love Japanese music, and now it's not just that I love music in general and that I like listening to Japanese music in general, but I have a very specific purpose behind listening to it. And this might be not a common thing. It might be or it might not be, I'm not sure, but I use Japanese music predominantly to study grammar. Now, as a huge disclaimer, I do think that you need to already have a certain skill in Japanese to be able to use music the way I do. Just because, of course, people, when they talk Japanese in a conversation, they're not gonna phrase things like they do in like a love song or something. But if you have that, or if you're just trying to like get into the groove a little bit more, I highly recommend it. So I do either one, I translate the song myself. Now, how I do that is just, I take any song that I just like kind of vibe with, and I just try to like listen more actively to the actual words that are being spoken. So I just try to listen more actively to the words that are being spoken, and then I try to translate it myself. Again, I used to do this with English, and I loved it so much. I used to do this with my dad together in English. That was like a lot of fun. And now I do it with Japanese. So for example, the song that I just recently have been loving, or like an artist, because she has a really clear voice and she has like really beautiful lyrics that I think are not too hard for me to understand. Her name is Yuika, and I also love Lidia. Really, I love these two. Those are my favorite artists probably at the moment. I highly recommend checking them out. And it's just like a no-brainer to, I guess, kind of translate the song, see what sentence structure you recognize, what words you recognize. But more so often, what you can also do, which is option number 2, is looking at someone else's translation, I guess. If I have the translation in front of me, I'm able to recognize grammatical structures more easily. So for example, most recently I learned something about the grammatical structure, I guess, called nara. So for example, in the song "Watashi janakatta," she is singing "Watashi janai nara," which kind of means if it's not me or if not me. And I guess at first I didn't really understand from just listening. Like I was trying to sort of like interpret the direction the song was like going to. Is it a sad song? Is it a breakup song? Is it like unrequited love or something song, whatever? And once you have that figured out and then you look at a translation, a lot of the time you then recognize certain grammatical structures from other songs. Or if it's like the first time you're ever seeing this, if you then combine that translation with like listening to podcasts in Japanese or listening to anime, watching YouTubers, maybe then you sometimes recognize these grammatical structures again. That's kind of how I do it. It really helps me to just have the language come to me in a natural way, and I guess sort of have all the cards open, sort of just like watch translations, look at translations, but also actively listening and actively trying to remember, you know, this certain combination of grammar and words, if that makes sense. Also created 2 playlists with my absolute favorite Japanese songs that is also going to be linked down below. It's a YouTube playlist because I don't have Spotify. But yeah, if you sort of found your vibe with music and you're also someone who really enjoys music, I truly think this is one of the most powerful tools you could possibly use, especially if you're able to listen a little bit more actively and try to like not just fall asleep when you're listening to the song or just like be completely in your zone, but you're like just awake enough to sort of understand or try to concentrate on what they're actually singing. And once you've kind of acquired that skill, or once you start recognizing just one word in a song, I think that can be like really powerful for not only your confidence when learning a language, but also just like the overall skill. It's like I'm always like, oh, I think I just recognized that sentence. I think I was just able to translate that sentence. Moving on to another quite big category on my list, which are magazines. Oh my gosh, I got a collection. This is a collection. Now this is, again, I think one of my absolute favorite tips. I absolutely love this so much, and I think it's something that at least the viewers who have been here for a longer time know that I genuinely use a lot. Like I love reading Japanese magazines, and I guess the idea behind it is very similar to what I've mentioned previously as well. It's easy to incorporate into your everyday life. It teaches you niche specific vocabulary. You're probably going to want to talk about your hobbies and your likings, and it's a great way to gain more experience and knowledge about that through magazines, where you don't need a lot of energy and concentration for it, and they just look so cute. They do. Of course, you can easily purchase those in Japan. I know a lot of my viewers are currently like planning trips to Japan, so it might not be something on your radar, but definitely go check out like a bookstore, get yourself some magazines. I don't think you'll regret it. It's a great sort of like collecting item. As I said, there are solutions to buying it or receiving these items when you live in the West. Now you can do it like me. I bought most of my items in Japan, but some of them I bought in my local anime store, and I'm sure most of you, if you're from America or anywhere, you probably have like a local anime store or like a weeb store, and maybe you can ask the staff if they have any fashion magazines that they can show you, or you can also check out Amazon. I don't know if they have the newer versions of the magazines, but often they have like the vintage ones, which is super funny. They have the ones from like 2010, so it's a lot of like ghetto fashion, and it might not be the most up-to-date, but I do think it's definitely like an icon. But a lot of magazines you can also check out online, either on their Instagram account, on TikTok, or oftentimes just like on their website. Now my personal favorites are Ray, Cancan, Popteen, and ViVi, the holy ones that I really enjoy so much. Honestly, they just have so many benefits, and every time I look at these magazines I really start missing Japan, because the girls there dress exactly like these magazines. It's actually like it's incredible. So yeah, definitely get yourself some of these babies. Now, these were more of like the traditional mediums that I use, like magazines. But now we're gonna move on to my favorite apps and programs for communication practice. There's a lot of apps and programs for that, and my personal favorite is an app called MAUM, which by the way happens to be the sponsor of today's video. Now, I've introduced MAUM to you guys before on my TikTok and my Instagram, and you guys were eating it up. We're eating it up, so I wanted to give a little bit of a more thorough explanation of the program, because I've genuinely been using it a lot like privately. Now you can either download it as a mobile app, but you can also download it on your like MacBook. I'm just gonna introduce it a little bit more thoroughly to you guys because there's a lot of like really cool features that I personally really enjoy in comparison with other like exchange programs that I've personally like felt uncomfortable with. And we all know the program that I'm talking about. We all know it. Don't pretend like you don't know. If you don't know, you're probably monolingual. So MAUM is basically an app where you can basically pick and choose in the settings who you want to have a conversation with. So you can pick, for example, I want to speak to Japanese men and women today, or I just want to speak to like Japanese women, which I personally really enjoy that feature because I don't always feel like talking to men. I'm sorry, just the reality of it. I think that's a great extra feature that not everyone has to use, but I think the fact that it's there is definitely a huge plus. But there's so much more to the app, so let me just explain a little bit to you guys. So first of all, you can go onto your profile and edit your interests. Now, first of all, you're going to choose your MBTI. I'm an INFJ, I think. People ask me all the time what I am, and I think I'm an INFJ. And you can pick like your interests. I chose Studio Ghibli, I chose YouTube and Instagram. But you can also pick things like animation, K-pop, and then you can go on to hobbies and interests. I clicked languages, shopping, and like baking or something. Your personality, your lifestyle, you can just choose a lot of things. Art and beauty, well-being, financial. Also, the person you're gonna have a conversation with, of course, is gonna fill out those same things too, so you can like immediately see at first glance what type of person you're about to interact with. Next thing is sort of similar to what I've explained earlier, is you can decide and limit the people you want to have conversations with. Now I have a specific purpose for the usage of this app, which is not just to have conversations, but I want to have an exchange with a native speaker, so I'm just going to pick Japan. And I mostly just click on wanting conversations with women, and my age limit is like 17 to 31, I think. And yeah, it's just so easy to use, and it's just like something you can do when you're bored or once a week. It's like Omegle for normal people.
はじめまして。
はじめまして。
私はパパです。
あ、パパですか？いやー、赤ちゃん。ドイツ人？長女。シュメタリン？うん、シュメタリン。
シュメタリン。で、シバ。すごい。日本人な発音。言われなかったら日本人だと思ってた。モカさん、かわいい名前。なんでこんなに日本語上手なんですか?
Sometimes I have like random fun conversations. Sometimes you have like a lot of similarities with people, sometimes you don't. I think that's just like the fun and the beauty of it. And I know a lot of you guys have told me that you're too shy to use it, but I really think getting out of your comfort zone is a must if you want to learn a new language, and I highly recommend it, and maybe you might even make a friend or two. Now, the next section is going to be dedicated to learning vocabulary, but it's a little bit different than what I've mentioned before, and it's more focused on how you can actually like remember all the vocab that you want to learn. Now, I always have like one dedicated vocab book, but the important thing is to not only like consume the media and just listen and just realize, oh, this is a new word or something, but you want to actually like write it down somewhere. So write them down with the English translation or with the translation of your native language, and use that vocab book, or use little flashcards or something. And a way that helps me really memorize these vocabularies is not to just like write down the word and then write the translation on the other side or something, but I use quite big flashcards, and I've done this ever since high school, where I'm able to remember something much more faster and much better if I actually use the word in like a full sentence, and I just build the sentence on my own, you know. So if my word, for example, is jacket, I will not just write jacket and then write it on the other side, the translation. I will actually find one or two sentences that include the word jacket, and then try to remember the words with like by incorporating them in like a bigger picture, I guess. I got these at like my local drugstore or something, but I'm pretty sure you can just get these on Amazon. Now, I hope I was able to introduce a few new mediums and ideas in my Japanese learning rituals to you guys. Hope I was able to inspire you a tiny bit to finally start or continue to learning Japanese.